Autoweb. Welcome to the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast, the #1 resource for automotive sales professionals, managers, and owners to learn how to make money, accumulate wealth, and do all out ball out in the auto industry. And now your hosts, Sean V. Bradley and L.A. Williams.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Autoweb.
All right, my friends. So this is Sean V. Bradley, the president of Dealer Synergy, and the creator of the Millionaire Car Salesman Group. And again, I got to tell you today, I'm super excited because I've got a rock star in the building. You know, I got the general manager of Norm Reeves Honda, Dave Holmerud. Dave, listen to me, my brother, man. Like, yo, you are part of an elite organization that rings bells on planet Earth. So welcome to the show. Pleasure having you.
Thanks, Sean. It's an honor to be here, man. And not as elite as you, dude. I don't have one of those, but, you know, I've been a fan of you for a long time, man. So I'm honored to be on the podcast.
For sure. No, thank you so much. Well, listen, I want to just jump into it because, you know, I don't know if you, because you're kind of young, so I don't know if you heard of Meek Mill. There's a rapper, you know, from Philly where I'm based out of, and he's got a song called Levels, right? There's levels to this. There's levels to the game. And being a GM is extremely respectable. You know what I mean? Like that's like the epitome of what you want to be able to do is be a general manager and run your own store, be a captain of the ship. But then, you know, being a GM on a single point store might be something. But then even having the #1 Honda store in, you know, California or something like that. But to be the general manager of an organization like Norm Reeves Honda, how do you get to that level? So tell us about your background. How did you get to the automotive industry, and how did you wind up being the general manager of the #1 Honda dealership in the world?
I'll tell you. First, little disclaimer: I'm with the group that is the #1 Honda dealer in the world. We're in the top 30 here in Irvine. But so my journey in the car business, I got here from being in the restaurant industry, and it's you know, it's kind of funny. A lot of people from the restaurant industry transition super well into this business because you got to have hustle, right? And you got to be able to flip the switch and be an actor and go from the restaurant being dead to you got a line waiting for tables out the door, and you got to turn it on and you got to do what you got to do. Very similar to our business, right? So I was bartending at a golf course, and the owner of a events company used to come in there. And so he came in and talked me into joining his company. And when I say events, it was like on-site slasher sales. We traveled the country, sold direct mail pieces, newspaper inserts, and had these big used car promotional events. And that was my intro into the auto industry. That was in 2004. But, you know, it hasn't been a constant rise the whole way. I've had, you know, ups and downs through my career. And I'm glad you asked that question, because that's, to me, you know, what I want people to get from me talking, and what I try to teach to my team is, you know, just because something doesn't go your way doesn't mean you give up, right?
Yes.
So when I first started working for the events company, we would be cold calling dealerships, similar to probably when you started your company, right? Mm-hmm. So about 3 months in, I'm a young kid. I'm about 22 at the time, and I hadn't sold a deal. And it was 1099 gig. So worked for 3 months for free, and the company was, you know, helping me to get by a little bit. And they're like, "Here, go be a sign waiver at this event. We'll pay you $300, right?" And it was pretty humbling. And I wanted to quit a bunch of times, right? And they, you know, kept telling me, "Dave, we think you got it, man. Hang in there, hang in there." And then finally, I get my first deal, and it was kind of like the little boy with the finger in the dam, right? Once the water started coming, it started coming. So then I got my second deal, my third deal, and I started feeling good, right? And learned a lot in that industry, because that's a hard deal, cold calling on guys like me. And, you know, the #1 thing that I learned there was persistence wears down resistance, right? So a guy named Scott Vick taught me that, and it rings true to this day, man. If we persist to be successful and resist all the resistance that life has given us, and whoever it is, whatever objections we have, we just keep banging through, we're going to be successful at the end. And so I did that deal from 2004 to 2009, and economy kind of a little bit. And so what happened is I needed a home, and I was that was what I was good at, is we would go to these events and be closers. And so I got a job at a dealership and started on the line and worked my way up. Right. I went from being a salesman, got promoted to be a closer, a couple months into being a salesman. And then it was me and one other guy that were closers. And they decided, hey, we're not going to have closers anymore, Dave. And the other guy, who my team constantly stomped his, we were, over 100 units ahead of them, bunch of gross more. They gave the other guy the internet director position, and they said, hey, Dave, we're going to put you back on the line. And I was demoralized, right? Oof. And, saying a bunch of bad things about my boss in my head and, questioning my place in the world. But what I did is, the next day I put my shoes on the same way I did the day before. And I came to work and I said, I'm going to show you. And I came in and I was the best salesperson at that dealership. And in less than a month, we had a finance manager walk out, and I walked into the GM's office and I said, I want that job. And he's like, you earned it, Dave. So I got the F&I spot. And
wait a minute, stop. You're killing them with nuggets, but like there's so much that I got out of this so far. I want to kind of recap and kind of just go over. But first, what you learned, I love that statement. Okay. Persistence will wear down resistance. Persistence will wear down resistance. And if I'm going to just be as a trainer and Sean Bradley here, that basically is the rules of engagement of follow-up. That's the whole purpose of following up with somebody, is that you need to be able to identify a target of opportunity, a prospect. Once you engage that prospect, you've got to qualify that prospect, find out their wants, wishes, expectations, be able to present to that person what is different and better about you, your why message, your value package proposition. But throughout that, not everybody is ready to buy a car today. Not everybody wants to buy a car or needs to buy a car, etc. As a trained automotive professional, our job is to create excitement, create value, create urgency. And in the process of that, we're going to have people that are going to say, no, I'm just looking. I need to talk to my wife, and a myriad of other objections and rebuttals, but persistence will wear down the resistance. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
100%. And it's funny you stopped me there and went into that. Our sales meeting this morning for Friday morning, we started talking about that is, what is the why of the customer, right? And sometimes you got to ask them 5, 6, 7, 10 times, why are you looking for this vehicle, right? And the analogy that I was once taught is you got to figure out what the itch is and help them scratch it, right? So why do you want a hybrid vehicle? Do you want a hybrid vehicle because you think you're going to save money, or do you want a hybrid vehicle because it's green? And sometimes you might not save money buying the hybrid vehicle. So let me explain that and give you some alternatives, right? But we don't know why somebody wants something unless we ask and we're persistent in getting through people's initial wall that they have up. And at the end of the day, we're just here trying to help them. But unless we can break down those barriers, we don't get the real why of what they're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely makes a ton of sense. The other thing I got a ton of stuff out of it, is that, you are a very prestigious and respected GM of a major organization. Norm Reeves, like Honda, rings bells. And I know that there's other Norm Reeves Hondas in Irvine. I get all that. Cerritos, I get all that. So the reality, though, is that you didn't have like this storybook, like you just came in and just ascended to the throne. I mean, like you put in your work. You had talent, obviously, because I'm going to tell you right now, to not work on the front lines and sell cars and go straight to a staffed event, that's interesting. That's awesome. Usually people at a staffed event are people that have experience as closers or high-level performers. So you had to develop some pretty awesome skills and talent to be doing all these staffed events. And again, there was goods, there's bads. That didn't, manifest immediately. You wound up going to a dealership, had some success, but then you kind of got knocked back. But instead of like quitting, and let's talk about that for a second, what I believe is one of the most cataclysmic problems of our industry, Dave, is attrition. We have a 70 to 80% attrition before the pandemic. And now with the pandemic, with all these freaking stimulus checks, dealers all over the freaking country are having the most difficult time ever hiring people at all levels. And it's because a lot of people, even before the pandemic, were just thinking the grass is greener. But you were smart enough, instead of, having your ego get to you, you said, I'm going to dig in. I'm going to show them. I'm going to show them what I'm about. And it sounds like what you said, that F&I position opened up and you freaking swam right into it. So talk about that as a GM now, and with your life experience. Like, isn't that frustrating seeing people that have talent and they just leave because they think it's better somewhere else? Talk about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we see it all the time. Is, we're talking about I like to use the analogy of baseball, right? So our team here at the dealership, it's like I'm the general manager of the team, and I'm talking about all the players we have and what players do we need to add, who's best at what positions and all these things. And we're constantly having those conversations with our coaches, right? With, the GSM, the desk guys, finance director. Hey, who's on the bench, right? Who's next? And we're having these conversations. And I can't tell you how many times, one of the people that is next has that grass is greener mentality and, can't wait for their turn. So then they go somewhere else that they think is going to give them the turn. And more times than not, they don't get the turn there. And then they miss out on their turn where they're at.
150 million %. The people that I've seen that are the most successful in this industry, I'm talking about like the Cody Carters, for example, and the Ali Reddas and these freaking rock stars. They develop roots in the community. Okay, they develop like the mighty redwood tree, right? They develop these massive roots in the community, and they're repeat business and referrals. And you cannot ascend at that level selling 80, 90, 100, 150 units a month on the showroom floor if you're bouncing from store to store. It's just not feasible. So if I was selling cars still, I used to only average 30 cars a month when I was, and I don't mean that to be condescending, only 30, but when we're talking about like Cody Carter, Ali Reddas, I'm going to give these goats the respect that they deserve. But, even when selling 30 cars, I didn't have to be in the community for a long time, but there's no way in hell I was going to go from 30 to 60 or 90 without longevity in the community. So why do you think that salespeople, and even not the salespeople, the managers, managers should know better? Why aren't managers doing a better job conditioning their salespeople to want to stay at that dealership? Because let me flow with this for a second here, because again, I think that salespeople should be told from the door, look, if you want to be successful in this industry, you need to find roots. Hopefully that's with this organization or not, but since you're here, let's turn around and make this work. And so I think part of the strategy or problem is that the salespeople needs to believe and really internalize, their paradigm needs to be, I need to find a home. The second thing though, because a lot of times it's not just the salespeople being greedy or stupid. Sometimes it's freaking management or ownership that treats their people like crap. Not you. I've been at your organization. I spent time training with your people. You have an amazing culture, but that's a little bit different than most dealerships. Most dealerships spend more money in marketing, advertising than in team building, training, and basically developing their human resources. So my question directly is this, I know I rambled a little bit, is why, if I know that, you know that, then why aren't salespeople and managers focused on trying to create the best environment so people want to stay?
They should. And the reality and the way I manage is that I try to build the best possible team that I can, and then I try to offer them the best possible culture that I can. And that comes down to how do I want to be treated as an employee myself? How do I want to be treated as a person myself? And then trying to relay that into my managers so that they can trickle that down into my team. And then in my interactions with my team, that it's the same. And I'm a work-life balance guy. We go to work so that we can have a life outside of work. And I want my team to have that. And that's a rare thing in this industry is, I don't want people to have to work bells. I don't want people to not be able to be part of their kid's life growing up. And I gotta touch on that too, is, as a manager, it's our job to sell our team on the idea of longevity, like you're saying, and the attrition, right? And part of that is, like you said, you got to have staying power. You got to develop roots somewhere so you can get those repeat and referral customers. But outside of work, what does that mean? And for me, I got to tell you, I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for my beautiful wife. My wife was the sounding board and the voice of reason for me during many dark moments in my career where things didn't go my way, right? She held me together, and she was my motivation, and our family was my motivation to get me through, things that I didn't agree with. And I know I'm rambling, but let me go down this road.
I love it.
To ascend in the car business, what I tell people when they come to me and hey, Dave, I want to be in finance. Hey, Dave, I want to be a sales manager, is here's the things I'm looking for in a finance manager. Here's the things I'm looking for in a sales manager is, one, how do you handle adversity, right? When something doesn't go your way, do you pout and put your tail between your legs and go crap everybody else out? Or do you deal with it and rise to the occasion, right? Because when you go into finance, not everything's going to go your way. When you go on the desk, not everything's going to go your way. And then the other thing is, are you a top performer? Are you helping others around you get better? Because as you ascend through the car business, that's our job, right? Is we're mentors, we're life coaches, and we're trying to teach people what is possible in this business. And it's the, old adage of, don't give somebody a fish, teach them how to fish, right?
Absolutely, Dave. Absolutely. Okay, so let's redirect a little bit here because I think this is fascinating. I want to talk about closing. Because obviously, if you worked in a staffed event company, that's pretty much what you do. Like you said, you're ripping in and out of stores all over the country, and it's like it's like an immersion, and then you're just trying to close. Then I heard you before say that you went from sales, got promoted to a closer. So as the GM of Norman Reeves Honda, define a closer. What does that mean to you, and what type of what's the job description of a closer at a dealership, and what are the characteristics that really make up the best closers?
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because obviously getting the start as a staffed events guy, I wasn't exposed to the long-term part of a dealership, right? The life cycle of the customer comes back into service and then we get to sell them another car and we get the referrals and all this stuff. It was all about right now, let's close the deal. And it wasn't until I started working at a dealership and then grew up as a salesperson, as an employee, and as a manager that I realized, we're neighbors, right? With our customers, is we're part of the community, and we need to treat every guest that walks through the door that way. And we're developing a lifelong relationship, right? So initially, I would tell you, if you asked me this question 15 years ago, the job of a closer is to close the car deal and close it right now. And if you ask me that where I'm sitting right now, my answer is the job of a closer is to go back to the last thing we were talking about, is to be a coach and a mentor to your team. And to give them tools to be successful, and also to put your arm around them and say, here, follow me, kid. Let me show you how it's done, right? So when I was on the road, it's not the normal entrance into the car business, like you mentioned, because those people are, they're seasoned. They've been, at dealerships. They're already closers or they were managers, right? And I got sold as being that and had to act as if, right? And I did a pretty good job doing it. And how I did it, we give a shout out to Uncle G, man, Grant Cardone. So I used to listen to all of the closes, and I had all of his one-a-day CDs, and I was listening to them on repeat on a Discman. And then the other thing I did was being exposed to hundreds of dealerships like you have, Sean, is I would go in, even if I wasn't on a deal, and I would go sit at the desk next to where the deal was and just be quiet and listen to what they said, when they said, why they said. And then I would ask the closer or the manager, hey, why did you say that? When did you say that? And I was a student, right? And that's what made me a good closer, was being exposed to all these different methodologies and constantly training and constantly learning the word tracks, a word track, all it is, it's a tool to stay in the fight, because persistence wears down resistance, right? So if I have enough word tracks to stay in the deal, eventually that customer's resistance is going to be down enough that they'll tell me what the real objection is. And then I can solve their problem so that they can make a wise decision, and we all win, right? Because they finally said, hey, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. And I said, here's the solution.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Attention auto dealers, you need an opportunity to do business. AutoWeb is one of the largest suppliers of high quality leads, high quality buyers. At a 10% closing ratio, you will be at less than $190 per car sold. Don't just settle for what you get. AutoWeb can fully customize your results through targeted markets and/or zip codes, and as a partner, you will get premium placement within search results. Who better to do that than literally the people that invented automotive internet sales? If you want to sell more cars more often and more profitably, then you need AutoWeb.
I got to tell you, I agree 100%. One of the reasons and one of the the strategies that I had when I first got into the business was to absorb as much as I could. Starting with the OEM certification, a lot of stores, because I have 2 daughters and a nephew that's selling cars on the front lines, and they even tell me, family like that I trust their honest opinion, is that a lot of the times across the United States, both my daughters worked in 2 different states. One worked in Pennsylvania, one works in New Jersey right now. And it blows my mind, Dave, that there's salespeople that don't do the OEM certification. They pay other salespeople to take their OEM certification, or they'll have their phone, they'll record this, like the answers, and go back and just guess. So they're not even taking part of the OEM certification, which blows my mind. Me, I went through that like a nerd. I went through all of my certification, plus I self-taught everything, because the dealership that I worked at, one of the stores I worked at the very beginning, was very big into training. That kind of got my mind started. But when I went to the next store, 0 training. So I had to find Grant Cardone, the Jackie B. Cooper, which is really old school stuff, Paul Cummings, Teledynamics. I went through all that training, and that's in the automotive industry. Then I went outside the automotive industry for Dale Carnegie, it's Dr. Stephen Covey, Robert Kiyosaki from Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I really tried to learn as much as I could. And every rich person and highly successful person that I've interviewed for my Against All Odds radio show, they say the same thing, is that the most successful people on the planet, they invest in themselves first. Warren Buffett said, and this is a fact, that his greatest investment that he ever did was spending $150 for a Dale Carnegie course when he first started out. So the people that invest in themselves, in education, in process, in resources, or have you, are phenomenal. So let's start there with that. How come what is your opinion that the majority, which is a fact, the majority of sales professionals, and even worse, a vast majority of managers, they don't train. They don't believe in the necessity of practice, drilling, rehearsing consistently. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean, it's the saying, right? The 1%ers, right? They do what the 99% won't do. And that's the reality. Is if you want to ascend to higher levels, is you need to put in the work that everybody else doesn't want to put in. And, here in Southern California, we have a lot of people that commute to and from work. They're stuck in horrible traffic, and they're on the road for an hour and a half. And, there's 2 different types of people that work in this industry. There's the ones that are listening to your podcast in the morning on the way to work. And then there's the ones that are listening to music. And me coming up in the industry, like I said, I listened to all the Cardone stuff. Then as, time went on, as I started ascending into management, I needed to learn how to be a manager, how to be a leader of people. Right. So I started, doing audio tapes while I was driving. At a point in my career, Sean, I lived in Rosarito, Mexico, lived in a different country, and went across a border every single day to drive to work, and was an hour and a half to 2 hours on the road each way. But what I did was I was listening to the audio tapes. I was listening to the 7 Habits, and I was listening to all these self-improvement books and management books about how to be a leader. And in the meantime, also listening to podcasts like your own, right? And listening to YouTube videos of you talking about, phone scripts, and just constantly sharpening my axe, right? So I could get better. And that's the difference between the true leaders in this industry and the ones that, are just collecting a paycheck and they're probably plateaued in their career, right? If you want to keep growing, you got to keep growing.
No, and just for the record, everybody, this is I'm really honored to be able to say that Norm Reeves Honda, their training platform is Bradley On Demand. And, more that I get to know you, Dave, because I didn't know a lot of this, honestly, your background with the staffing company and just your philosophies about like education and immersion, stuff like that. But is that some of the reasons why you decided on our platform, was because of the diversity and it's newer information?
Yeah, it's more relevant to today's car business, right? Everybody's holding a computer in their pocket right now, right? And so it's a more information-based selling cycle than it was in the past. And like you talked about with OEM training, right, is, people are expecting us to be the experts, and we should be, right? We should be the experts of the brand that we're selling. We should be the experts of the industry that we're in. And my job as a leader is to give people those tools, right? And then to give them my story on, hey, this is how I got where I am. And then part of that Sean Bradley, here's his thousands and thousands of hours of criteria that'll teach you how to be a pro and teach you how to, excel to levels that you didn't even think were possible. And then you partner up with people like Cody Carter and Alfreda and, Frank Cronetti's of the world. Right. And you're just lobbing unbelievable amounts of information and resources to everybody in the auto industry. And the sad part is that it's, this much very small percentage of people that are actually reaching out and absorbing the information and owning it. Right. And I wish it wasn't that way, but this is life, right?
Absolutely. Let's give our audience some tidbits from you and for me for resources. So right now we are October 1st, 2021. We just started a new month. We're in the fourth quarter. This is the bottom of the eighth inning, metaphorically speaking, here for the rest of this year. And the current climate in our industry is this chip shortage. The fact that with these microchips, the adverse effect to our industry is that, I believe I just read the other day that there's about 7.7 million units, meaning vehicles, that are not going to be produced this year. They also estimate there will be about $290 billion revenue loss. But on the flip side of that, there is because of this pandemic and the chip shortage, there's been a massive growth in the gross profits. And they estimate, there might be $290 billion in lost revenue from 7.7 billion vehicles not being produced. But what they said, though, is that there's going to be approximately $90 billion in additional gross that's made, because of we're selling cars at list or over sticker. So the reason why I'm setting this up for our audience is my direct question to you is, in this current climate, right, and selling Hondas, especially at a volume store, how are you dealing with people coming in and they used to be used to getting discounts on Civics or Accords, and now, if I'm understanding, for the most part, they're either at list or $1,000 over list. How has your audience and your prospects adjusted to the new market adjustment reality?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and it's constantly evolving, right? So here at Norm Reeves, what we're doing is we're not doing just a market adjustment where it's, hey, charge the customer this much extra just to be able to buy a car from us, right? We're doing dealer installed accessories, and the way that is being decided upon and then explained to the customers is that obviously, we have a cost of doing business, and as the volume of cars drop, the cost of our business doesn't change. I'm still have a giant facility in Irvine, California, and my rent didn't go down just because I have less cars, right? The inflation going on in the world is actually making my cost of business go up. I'm having to pay people more money. Minimum wage is increasing again next year. And so the cost of running a business is going up, but our volume is dropping. I mean, just to give you kind of an example, I got 44 new cars on the ground this morning, and normally I would have 800. So it's a pretty radical adjustment. I got 115 used cars on the front line, and that's almost 3-to-1 to used cars, which is unheard of. It's usually the flip side, right?
Yes.
So, and that's kind of the focus, right? And that's the value add for the customer, right? And the OEMs are looking at the CPO programs as being the new entry level into their brands.
Let's go back before we go, because that's a hot topic right there, the CPO, entry level. I want to touch that, but I want to go back. So pretty much, would you say it's safe to say that the public, your public in California, they're starting to understand, whether it's online or making phone calls to different dealerships or when they come into the stores, they're getting acclimated to the new reality that you can't get an Accord at triple net or $500 below invoice anymore. For right now and for the foreseeable future, those days are over. So do you see somebody that's shocked when they come in and you're like 3Gs over sticker on a car, or do they really at this point kind of understand what's going on?
No, I mean, for the most part, people kind of understand what's going on. There are some outliers that don't, and we're having to educate them. I mean, the thing that we have that is a blessing here at Norm Reeves, and what has made Norm Reeves the juggernaut that it is we have a price protection guarantee. So it says, hey, if you can find the same new Honda within 5 days anywhere else, we'll pay you the difference or we'll buy your car back, right? And that doesn't change in these market conditions. So if we still have to live by the rules of the market, we still have our guarantee, right? So we're out to be the number one Honda retailer in the world, and that's never going to change. And how we get there by taking care of our customers, right? And before we can take care of our customers, we need to take care of our employees, and we need to take care of ourselves, right? So we need to create a good culture, and we need to live with good core values so that we can put our best foot forward when we're interacting with the guests, and then give them something of value. And that's why we don't just charge a markup for no reason, is we give you what most customers end up putting on the cars anyways.
No, and I love that. I want to acknowledge that is that I have clients all over the United States that are just doing market adjustments. It's like it's now just $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 over sticker, and that's that. You guys do have a market adjustment, but the couple things that I heard you say that are really critical for our audience is, one is that you add in aftermarket items that actually have tangible value, not just intrinsic value or perceptive value. They're actually tangible, items that add and justify the market adjustment, one. And second, you've got the price protection guarantee. And then third, it's the way that you treat your people, both your employees, but then also obviously your prospects and your clients. This is good. All right, so let's redirect this though, because you started to talk about the OEM. Now, before we touch that, I have one big question before that. How do you feel, not just because of the pandemic, but the pandemic, I think, massively accelerated this? What is the current reality of car shopping and car buying, part A? And then part B is, where do you see this evolving to? Now, before you answer that, I want to give you a little backlog here, is that, digital retailing was like supposedly really big before the pandemic. Everybody's going to do it, but the data shows that less than 10% of people from fulfillment, from initial engagement to completion from A to Z, less than 10% of people before, during, and I believe after the pandemic, it's the same thing. So digital retailing was a new magic bean. It has value and it caters to the audience, but at 10% or less, it's not that dramatic for me to really care. So my question to you is, how do you think human beings, or at least Californians, how do you think they want to shop and purchase buying a vehicle? And is that what you're trying to do at Norm Reeves?
Yeah, I mean, I think digital retailing is an excellent tool. And for the most part, that's what it is. It does give the consumer the option. Hey, if you want to complete your transaction online and have everything ready, we can do that for you, right? But more than anything, it's another educational tool for the guests so that they can explore and have the control, right? They're holding on to the joystick and they're in the driver's seat, right? So they can build their own deal and see the effects of all that in the comfort of their own home, which is awesome. But the question I would have to ask you, Sean, is, you're a real estate investor yourself, right? Yes. You would buy probably maybe by looking at pictures if it's an investment property and having your team look at it, but you're not going to buy the house you're going to live in yourself without walking through it, right?
Agreed, 100%.
Neither would I, right? I need to walk in there. I need to feel the aura, right, when I walk in. And it's the same deal when it's going to be a car that I'm going to drive every day, or my family member is going to drive every single day. Is I think by human nature, people are going to still want to touch and drive and feel before they make that decision. And the digital retailing, again, is that tool that they have the ability and comfort to do at their own leisure. And for the dealer, it provides us another opportunity to give more information and present alternatives to the customer that they might not have known were possible. So the digital retailing tool that we have, we can actually send the consumer the vehicle that they inquired about, but then also we can trim up, trim down, model up, model down, go to a CPO and give the customer, different options of saying, hey, here are 5 different vehicles that you may be interested in. And then they can see, hey, it costs this much more a month, right? And then they get to make an educated decision.
Yeah, what I'm hearing, you're seeing these words, options, and to me, it's fluidity. Here's what my take on this whole thing is. I'm big student of successful people, and Dr. Stephen Covey from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he talks about it takes about 6 weeks to make or break a habit. That's it, 6 weeks. We've been in this pandemic for over a year and a half. We're going on almost 2 years. Is it going on here? It's crazy. So people have been conditioned to do their birthdays, their anniversaries, their freaking funerals, through Zooms. It's so tragic. You hear stories of people that have loved ones that have COVID that are about to pass away, and they the only way they could see them is through a freaking Skype or a Zoom thing. So people are now so used to, they're conditioned to communicating through Apple FaceTime, Zoom, Skype, WhatsApp, these type of things that are there, and they're so used to different options. I could go on my Samsung refrigerator and I can order my groceries right through Instacart. I have cameras in there that lets the Instacart know when my milk is done. I'm not exaggerating. So technology's evolved, to a certain level. I think dealers need to be responsible to have certain tools to make it easy for a prospect to understand and make, buying decisions off of. Then the next level to that is, if we've got these resources, is have different versions of how to make that happen. To your point, if some people want to come in and kick the tires or whatever, those are kinesthetic thinkers, by the way. Okay, then so be it. Then that's that option. We can do most of this over the phone and internet, come in and schedule an expedited delivery process. But if there's people that are too busy or too afraid to come to store from the pandemic, whatever, you should be able through digital retail or whatever other ways to do the entire thing completely, like from their comfort of their boxers in their house, and then deliver the vehicle, to their home or office, and anywhere in the middle. So as long as there is fluidity, because not everybody wants and thinks and needs the same things. And if a dealer thinks that they're going to find one model that's going to cover everybody, they're out of their mind. Do you agree or disagree?
No, I couldn't agree with you more. And as an operator, my job is to be analytical about those things, right? How easy is it to do business at Norm Reeves Honda Irvine? Those are the questions I need to ask myself, and I need to explore every road that leads to any type of business at this facility, and look at, if I'm the consumer, how easy is it to get somebody on the phone? How easy is it to research all these different makes or models that are presented? How easy is it to see the service specials and blah, 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 all the way down the line? How easy is it to schedule service online? And then how does that translate into the actual visit when I show up? Are they prepared for me, right? And then these are the things that, are really going to bear fruit, is if we're looking at all that stuff and we are prepared when they show up, right? Because then what does that person do when they leave here after they drove away in their new car and we were ready for them, right? They go tell everybody how great it was. But same person comes in and we're not ready. What do? They tell everybody how unprepared we were. And, the ripple effect is horrendous, right? But so as a leader, those are the things we need to look at is, how many different avenues do I have open to attract business, and how easy are those avenues to travel on?
Man, strong. Okay, so now I want to go back to the OEM and the CPO thing. But before you talk about that, this is also about the OEMs. It blows my mind that I'm seeing like Ford manufacturer that wants to go. They're projecting I think something crazy like 60% direct to order model, and so they're trying to change the business. I think they're crazy personally. I don't think it's realistic that you're going to have a 60%, direct to order model. But then I'm interested in what Honda has to say, like you said about, that CPOs are now their first line. And then I want to know your opinion. So how do you feel that car sales is going to evolve, either because of the global reality of what's going on, or from the OEMs, or from the way that the consumers are going to drive the business? How do you think this is going to wind up playing out in the next, let's just say, year to 3 years? What is your prediction of the industry and how people shop and buy cars?
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Did you know 40% of service calls go to voicemail or hang up?
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system.
How many times does it take for your customers to connect with someone at your store?
The world may never know.
Unless you have CallSource customers connect with 96% of their clients' calls and convert over 85% of bookable calls to appointments. Really? If you're not performing at that level, or if you don't know, then text HELP to
855-963-2686
and receive a free evaluation of your store's performance.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not even so much that the OEM is trying to design the brands so that the entry is CPO as much as it's, to use inflation again, it's just the cost of building a vehicle today, right? The cost of doing anything today. So if you want to buy a brand new 2022 Honda Civic, you're knocking on the door of $30,000. And 5, 6, 7 years ago, I mean, you could probably buy an ad special for under 20. So that's not possible today. So then the rules of math haven't changed along with the cost of building things and the cost of operating business. So the monthly payments have risen. And it's hard to take a 18, 19, 20-year-old kid that's a college student and working part-time and have them be able to afford a payment on a brand new car. But we can show them one that has maybe 3, 4, 5, 10,000 miles, and the OEMs are offering, subsidized APRs, and you're able to lease some of these things. So you can still get an attractive payment for that first-time buyer, but they get a like new vehicle because of the standards that the OEM has for our reconditioning on these cars, that, hey, you're going to get the same experience that we used to be able to offer for the same money 10 years ago. We're going to find another way to offer to you today. And that's why they now have the leasing of late model vehicles and those kind of things. And the evolution of the industry into the reservation-based process, I think that is going to happen, right? And it's going to happen because people like the comfort of shopping from their own home and being in control of the process. But similar to digital retailing, like you're saying, the actual completion rate of a lot of the reservations is not 100%. It's not near 100%. And so what happens with the ones that don't complete is they get their refund back from the OEM, and the vehicle comes and ends up on the lot, and it's available for the general public to buy. So it's just another tool that people will have to be able to shop. And that's great. Just like your Samsung refrigerator, right? It shops for you.
Right. Okay. So then here's the big question I've been kind of saving, because I want to get every high level, executive in our industry to answer this to me. I've been in the industry for almost 23 years, man, and it's not a lot of time, compared, but I'm only 45 years old. So almost half my life has been, in this industry, and I've never, ever seen grosses this high. And I know people that have been in the industry 40 years and longer that have said the same thing. So the reason why grosses, maybe I'm not talking about for one store, I'm talking about for the entire industry as a whole, are at record breaking numbers, is because obviously there's such a massive shortage. You usually have, you said hundreds and hundreds of cars, you've got 44 in stock. So if there's no new cars, for the ones that are there, the market, the demand is so high, then you're going to be paying more money. And same thing for the used cars, because there's not nearly any, new cars available. So the used car, prices go sky high. Now, here's the question. Do you see the industry keeping, even fractionally keeping, the level of grosses they've been achieving during this pandemic? Do you think that this is like a new thing? Like dealers are going to be like, oh my God, we've been missing out on all this gross for all these decades. Shit, I don't want to give these out. Or do you think it's going to be as soon as the inventory starts to come back, what's going to wind up happening is that dealers are going to play the game, the volume game, and cut in the grosses? How do you think this is going to play out?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, every industry is controlled by supply and demand. And that's what's fueling today's margins, and that's what's going to fuel the margins of the future. The questions and the conversations that are being had as a result of today's economic situation in the industry are happening on both sides of the table. They're happening at OEM, they're happening at the dealership level, right? But the OEMs are also, even though they're producing less cars, they're seeing more efficiencies, right? Because at the end of the day, they're running a business. And if they don't have the cost of this factory being open for 2 weeks, guess what? Their bottom line gets affected, right? And if they don't have the same number of people, if they don't have the same transport damages.
Oh, wait. Let me add on to that, because what you're saying is brilliant. Let me add some brilliance on this too. But they don't have to pay all these incentives. Right now, they don't have to give $10,000 rebates. They don't have to turn around and do this stuff because, like there's such limited demand. So to your point, if I'm a manufacturer, I'm like, wait a minute here. We don't need to produce millions and millions of vehicles. So all the materials, all the costs, all the labor, all the machines, all that stuff, and we don't have to give special pricing and special discounts and special this and special that. So do you think, based on this line of conversation we're saying here, do you think the manufacturers, because that's the only way that this could work, is that we could all make the grosses that we're making right now, is if they make less vehicles? Because if the manufacturers keep trying to pump them out like they did before, and then they're tying allocation, turn and burn type stuff, is you have to sell the car. So if I want to have a good allocation, if I want to have this after that, I've got to get rid of these things really quickly. So do you think it's even bigger than the question for the dealers? Do you think the OEMs are going to make the smart decision and start to scale back inventory when they have the ability to? What is your prediction?
I think that there's some very smart people that work for the OEMs, right? And what they're going to be analyzing is what is the actual market demand, right? And it wouldn't behoove them to sit there and produce less than the actual demand if they could produce and keep up with the demand. But, like you said, they're not having to subsidize and create a market like they had in the past. But I think it's going to be a very fluid situation, and they're going to be monitoring what is the new demand. And then as people enter the market, can we keep up with it? And so I think it's going to be a roller coaster, and, I'm excited to be on the ride, man.
So again, do you think that, how long do you think it's going to be while the dealers have the, because there's a loaded question I have coming in here for a second here. So how long do you think it's going to be where it's like this? I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some people, unfortunately, that I feel bad if, especially if they're my audience that are listening and they're losing their businesses and things aren't successful, but that's not the reality. The majority of people are selling, are selling whatever cars they're selling, but they're making record grosses and they're more profitable than ever. When do you think this is going to change, whether it changes back to what it was or it changes to something that never has been before, but where dealers are not making stupid, ridiculous, record-breaking grosses like they are right now? Do you think this is the new normal, or is it going to go back a little bit? What do you think?
That conversation's been had since the start of the pandemic. Like, when is normal going to happen, right? And then are we in the new normal? And, we're going on a year and a half right now, right? And I would say that, yes, this is the new normal. And then when you look at the horizon of the supply chain, that normal is going to stay the same for a while, right? And it's a complex situation. And I mean, I think, definitely well into next year and possibly beyond.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I would agree. Hopefully it's not beyond, but I definitely think that you're right, that we're definitely going into at least first quarter, probably second quarter 2022 with the supply chain issues that there are. And so the question is, I think that there's going to be a point where somebody, because if the whole excuse is a damn microchip, somebody is going to figure out how to build a factory for these stupid microchips, because I think that's absolutely absurd that the whole entire industry is brought down by a microchip. I still can't wrap my mind around it, but let's just say that's true. I think that either one or two things are going to happen. Somebody's going to become the microchip genie and solve some problems, or B, the manufacturers and the dealers are going to be like, you know what? We don't need to be pumping out those type of vehicles. But I think something's got to happen. Either all right, man, this is the new normal officially from the OEMs, or, you know what I mean? We have that microchip genie. But once that comes into play, here's why I'm saying that. The challenge is this. It's hard to teach people how to fish when the fish are jumping in the boat and they're fat as hell. And we've talked about this before, and I talk about this with all my dealers, is that it's hard to get people to follow the script, the inbound process, outbound process, the qualification, all that stuff. And this is the 10,000 pound gorilla in the room. But let's keep it real here. If I'm a salesperson and I'm not being managed properly, which is the majority of the people, and I say whatever, and look, if the guy wants to buy a car, the girl wants to buy a car, I've got it. And you know what? Not only are they going to buy it, they're going to pay freaking 4Gs over sticker. So I'm finding dealers, not just my clients, but like my friends that have training companies and things like that, their clients too, is that it's the same thing. It's hard to tell your people, do this, and especially do this or else. Or else what? I just put like freaking $80,000 of gross on the books. You're going to fire me? I got the deal. I sold the car. You know what I mean? And so that is a challenge for executive managers like you that are trying to teach people processes and things like that. And it's hard for me as a trainer. What are your thoughts on that reality that it's hard to teach people to fish when the fish are jumping in the boat and they're fat as hell?
Yeah, it's super hard. But I mean, what it means is that we're asking of our team to evolve and learn how to fish when the fish are jumping in. But what are we doing as managers? Are we evolving to learn how to train during these times? That's the $1 million question I'm going to ask you is how are you changing your approach, right? And for me, everything boils down to the basics, right? No matter what is happening in the industry, it's, are we doing the basic things? Are we building the foundations of our team? And what I mean by that is, like, you know, at the beginning of the month, are you sitting down with your sales team and going over a calendar and saying, hey, Sean, how many cars do you want to sell this month, right? And then how many days are you working this week? So let's put it on a calendar. By the 4th, how many cars do you need to have to hit your goal? And to have that many cars out, how many phone calls do you need? How many appointments do you need to set? And working smart and analytical. And that's how you teach somebody how to fish. But yeah, the rules of engagement have changed, but they've changed for us as trainers, right? Is we need to sell our team on why it's important to continue to grow when everyone's getting fat. And, you know, it's more important now than it ever has been to focus on the basics.
Man, I've really enjoyed this conversation, you know, and how fast the pace of me and you going back and forth in here. And I know that anybody listening to this is like thinking, man, that's some really strong information. What are the things, as we wind down, Dave, what other things have changed? Inventory's changed, pricing's changed, the way that we communicate's changed. In the last year and a half, what other things have you seen that's changed, whether it's on the dealership level, the prospect level, the OEM level? Let's talk about it. What other changes have you felt and you've seen?
I'm going to put you on pause for a second and go back to that question in a minute. I want to ask you a question.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So what's up with the orange, man?
ADD question. So there's actually a story with this. When I first started my company, before I did so, I was a manager at a dealership. The last dealership I worked at was Cherry Hill Nissan, and I was in 2003. And here I am making about $160,000 as a BDC director at the #1 Nissan store in the Northeast region of the United States. So that's the profile. But I don't know jack about starting my own company. I'm a college dropout, you know, street kid from New York. I know how to run a business. So I became really good friends with a vendor company called Dealerskins. So Dealerskins was acquired. They're a Nashville-based company, but they were acquired by Dominion probably over a decade ago, and then they disappeared. So Dealerskins, their CEO was a graduate from Vanderbilt from Nashville, you know, business school, like it's high-level business school. And I was basically helping them reduce their attrition through proactive education and training. So when I first started my company, I didn't peddle myself like every other trainer does, door to door, hire me, I'm good. I went to these big companies. A lot of people don't know that. I went to these companies like Auto Bytel, Dealerskins, and I had a vision of macro selling, meaning let me find a company that's got access to hundreds or thousands of dealerships, build value for them, and they scale me. So Dealerskins and I developed a relationship, and part of what that was executive training. So the guy's name is Gabriel Kratchik from the CEO. I had once a week, training with him to learn how to become a CEO and how to run a national business. I had no idea. I used to work at a dealership in New Jersey, man. Come on. And so at that same time, I read a book from Seth Godin called The Purple Cow. It changed my life. The Purple Cow synopsis is this: out of a 1,000-acre field, if you want to stand out, you can't be a black and white cow amongst black and white cows. You need to be a purple cow. So that was in my head when I saw that Dealerskins colors were black and orange. And I'm not from Tennessee, so I don't know what freaking Tennessee team it is, baseball, football, whatever. But apparently there's a very famous team on Tennessee that's orange in it. And so that's why they did it. So how it started was 16 and a half years ago. I started my company 17 years ago, but about 6 months in, I had this whole concept through my executive training with Dealerskin CEO and reading that book that I want to differentiate myself. Now, check this out. You asked why. That was the question. Why the orange? Now, that was the long version. You know what my short version is? Because this gets asked one of the largest questions. That's why. Let me explain, because it's a damn conversation starter. You are a high-level GM, one of the best in the freaking world, right? And here we are in the middle of an international podcast, whatever. You stop to ask me that question. That means my shit works. Everywhere I go, one of the biggest questions I asked to me is, what's up with the orange? And I try to explain it's a conversational starter. It differentiates me. And here's the story how that solidified in my mind. When I was younger, when I first started this idea, before I started this idea, I used to have Commerce Bank, which is now TD Bank. I don't know if you guys have them out in Cali. So I'll never forget. Happened to me like almost 20 years ago. There's a guy, I'm in the line to the teller, Dave, right? And the guy had a name tag on, and had I don't even remember what his name was, but I know I could tell you still 20 years later what it said on the name tag. It said, "I love Bruce Lee movies." Yo, I'm telling you right now, I could not believe that shit. I was in the back of the line. There's literally at least 6 to 7 feet for me and this guy. But again, I had better vision at that point. It said Bruce Lee. It was pretty bold, so I could not wait to get to the front of the line. First thing I asked him, I didn't ask for my withdrawal from the money that I was there for. I said, "All right, my dude, what's up with Bruce Lee?" And why? Because I love Bruce Lee movies myself. I'll quote him. "I am all styles, I'm no styles." That's Bruce Lee right there. So when I got to this guy, I asked him, I said, "What's up with the name tag?" And you know what he said to me? "I don't know, stupid people said something about for our customers." And that's what the teller said. But it was brilliant to me. It was like, man, what do we want to do in sales? We want to humanize ourselves, right? We want to be a person of interest. We want to be able to stand out from the 1,000-acre field with black and white cows. And I'm telling you, man, it looks amazing when me and my team are on our conferences like Digital Dealer, black suit, white shirt, orange tie, bam, the branding is there and people ask all the time. You can't get me confused with Grant Cardone or Joe Verdi or whatever. And again, you notice that none of my competitors ever wear orange ties ever again, because it looks like that I'm their daddy. You know what I mean? Because we're so branded with the orange tie. So I hope that makes sense.
No, I thought it had something to do with, what's the name of the TV show you're on?
That's the Vice TV show. I was a teenage felon. No, that actually is red. That their thing is red. Their colors. Gotcha. Yeah, red and green.
I wonder if there's any correlation between
No, because I had it before. Yeah, no, remember that just the TV show just happened this year in 2021. I've had the company almost 20 years now, so I had.
No. I was thinking like an orange jumpsuit, and you want to.
Oh snap! Shots fired. He said the orange jumpsuit. Damn. You know what? That did happen before I came in there. You know what? I never thought of the correlation, but maybe subliminally, because I did have to wear some orange jumpsuits back in the day. So that's funny as hell.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm proud of you, dude. You what you've done in your career, and I mean, you're a TV star, you're a best-selling author, you got your own radio show. I mean, unbelievable what you've been able to accomplish, and as a result of the auto industry, right? And so you asked me a couple minutes ago, what has changed in the last year and a half? And the answer is simple. It's one thing has changed, right? And that's everything, right? So everything has changed that we thought was normal. But part of that everything is that we need to change, right?
Yes.
Is to evolve with what the industry is today and what our customers are demanding. And it's that part is never going to change, right? If we're going to continue to be successful, we got to be agile and on our feet and be able to shift and adjust to the market. And that's what's going to differentiate successful dealers, successful salespeople, and the ones that are just, clocking in and clocking out. And, I urge everybody to be a student and never stop learning, because you know what? The industry and life never stops changing. So it's our job to stay up to date and to stay relevant, right? And you do a great job at that, Sean. And that's why, I chose to have your platform teach the Norm Reeves team, is because you're relevant and you're not just complacent saying, hey, I have, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of videos and now I'm going to put my feet up. You freaking called me on my cell phone and said, what content can I give your team that they need right now?
Yes.
So that's the kind of energy, and that's the kind of bravado we need in this industry, is the desire to constantly improve and constantly stay relevant, man. And
Yeah, brother, thank you very much. And again, that was a hell of an answer. One thing's changed, and that's everything because you're so right. And I want to, since you brought up the whole background and things like that, I again I appreciate the accolades on that. But man, the reason why I'm vocal about it is because like I shouldn't be where I'm at in life right now. I mean, like I'm like just forget about the millions of dollars of stuff. Just everything that I do professionally, from the radio show, the TV show, the visibility. I have fun. I mean, like I should be miserable and complaining and blaming life, for why I'm still in prison or why I'm an air conditioning repairman. No disrespect to air conditioning repairmen, but it's a little bit different than being a multimillionaire. You know what I mean? Of your own companies, and so like, but just like you, we're not complacent with what we have. And what you were just saying, for me, I wanted to do more, be more, and achieve more. And the automotive industry is one of the most unique career opportunities that it literally gives you the opportunity to make as much money as you can earn. Look at Cody Carter. He's only 15 minutes away from your store, 20 minutes away from your store. This is a salesperson that will make over $1 million selling cars on the showroom floor. Not a freaking closer, not a sales manager, not an F&I manager, not a GSM, not a GM, not the dealer principal, but a freaking car salesman in California. Not even selling Ferraris or Lamborghinis or Rolls Royce or helicopters. We're talking about, you know what I mean? Not a helicopter's a car, but I get my point. Is he's selling freaking Toyotas. And he's going to make over $1 million on the floor. My point, I could go from all the craziness that I lived through and all the years that I lost in my life, all that stuff, and here I am able to do this. How? The common denominator is that there's so many things that have happened from the automotive industry. And I don't know if Dave, I've ever shared this with you. Let's talk about something deep, right? Which I don't get to flex on a lot, is that our industry. If you look at the professional athletes, I don't care who you name, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, I don't care, the greatest athletes or whatever. Do you realize that the automotive industry has made more billionaires than the professional sports industry, more than the freaking entertainment industry, more than the freaking fashion industry? And people don't think about that or talk about that, but we are in an industry that pumps out billionaires. When we've got companies on the regular, like we're playing Monopoly, the board game Monopoly, and I'm buying Park Place and shit like that, we've got companies acquiring other companies for billions of dollars. When Cox Automotive acquired Dealer.com, a freaking website company, for $1 billion, DealerTrack for $4 billion, I'm like, damn, how much is that company worth when they're just scooping up a bunch of companies for billions and billions of dollars? That's not normal. You can't get that type of money being like just a fan of Michael Jordan. But if you study the OEMs in this industry, if you study the dealer group, presidents and founders, if you study the money from what automotive could bring, anybody in this industry can cake up and level up real quick. That's my opinion.
No, 100%. I mean, look at you. Take the owner of my industry, or my company, Norm Reeves. So he started as a salesman.
That's what I'm crazy.
Look at Galpin. Started as a salesman. So the number one Honda store, number one Ford store in the world, the owners of them both started as salespeople.
Yo, so, that is exciting to me. And that's why people, you know who else told me this? Grant Cardone, who I love him to death, respect him. We're partners for 2.5 years, so I'm not throwing any shots. But Grant told me I was crazy for having my daughter start in this industry, right? I get it. He's in a different mindset now. Like she could start at Dealer Synergy, and then we're here. But the training that you get in this industry, it is harder to reach a freaking GM like you than it is the CEO of a Fortune 100 fucking company. Dealers and GMs, being able to try to train somebody to learn how to engage somebody like that. If you could make it in the automotive industry, whether it's on the sales floor, it's on a management level, a dealer principal level, or even a vendor, it makes the playing field for the rest of the verticals and the rest of the world just so much easier. There's just so much opportunity, and it's so difficult and so fast paced. And unlike regular companies that are quarterly driven, it's monthly driven. So I just think that we're in a unique industry that most of us that are in the industry don't appreciate, and it's not because they're disrespectful. I don't think that they really understand the magnitude of what the opportunity that's in there. Some of them are just lost at the front gates, but geez, I didn't even know that. It never like kind of crossed my mind to find stuff out like that. But damn, the number one Ford store in the world and the number one Honda store in the world, they started as sales people. I mean, shit, that's my pitch to come join this career. I mean, like, there's this guy, Sean Bradley, if he could do that, you're definitely going to crush it. There's these two number one dealerships in the world, and that's the pitch right there.
Yeah. And I mean, like Cody, like you said, but what is Cody to make that possible? And it goes back to what I was saying a little bit earlier, is how easy is it to do business with Cody? The dude is ready, prepared when you show up, and he developed that reputation.
100%. Man, this is exciting, and I love the pace of this, and I love the way that your mind works, and I love your contribution. Just like, you just started your month out, and you're taking time out of your day to pour into automotive professionals and managers in our industry that's listening to this podcast or this live stream. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for you, my friend. We're honored to be able to call Norm Reeves, Honda and your team, like a client and a friend of ours. So I appreciate you. I'm going to give you last words. What do you want to say before we close this thing out?
Good selling in October, man. I mean, everybody hustle, and I'm proud of everybody that's listening to this, because you're taking that first step and getting better. And Sean, thank you for having me on here, and it's been an honor, man.
Absolutely, my friend.
So there you have it, the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast. This podcast comes to you every week from the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. If you have a question about the show or would like the chance to become a guest, feel free to contact us directly at 856-546-2440 or email us at millionairecarsalesman@gmail.com. This program is a presentation of Synergy Records, produced by Tiana Mick and L.A. Williams. Production and engineering by L.A. Williams. The Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast is hosted every week by L.A. Williams and the Millionaire Car Salesman himself, Sean V. Bradley. The Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast can be found everywhere, so please don't forget to review, subscribe to, and share the show. Thanks for listening to the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast, and remember, where I'm from, money provides options. The Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast is sponsored in part by Autoweb and Call Source. If you enjoyed this podcast, then make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave us a review. Let some other folks know about it. Oh, and don't forget to join the Millionaire Car Salesman group on Facebook. We'll see you there.